Yo, what's going on, everybody? Appreciate everybody for tuning in to Vikings Now by Chat Sports. And coming up on today's show, ESPN dropped two bombshell articles around the Minnesota Vikings, one being a mock draft where a lot of you guys will be a fan of who they took at pick number 11. And then also they gave some insight on a quarterback the Vikings could bring back next season, and that is actually Daniel Jones. We'll talk about this all on today's show. But with the Cowboys playing the Vikings this weekend in Dallas, Sunday Night Football, it's going to be a very, very fun matchup, and we're actually taking on our Cowboys Report channel. A little sub battle, and they almost have us beat by almost 200,000 subscribers. So if you guys could hit that subscribe button today, my guy Tom Downey does great work over there. But hey, I would like to pick up a couple more subscribers this week to help us close this gap on the Cowboys Report. Almost 240,000 subscribers. Maybe one day we'll reach that goal. But if you guys could hit that subscribe button today, lock us in as your go-to Vikings YouTube channel. All right, let's talk about the mock draft here coming in from ESPN. And they had a blockbuster trade between the two New York teams where they had Fernando Mendoza going to the New York Jets with a trade up with the New York Giants. Then they had the Las Vegas Raiders taking Oregon quarterback Dante Moore. They had edge rusher Arvell Reese going to the Tennessee Titans from Ohio State. And then they had Carnell Tate, the first wide receiver off the board, going to the Cleveland Browns. Then picks 5 through 8, they had Francisco, the offensive tackle from Miami, going to the Saints. They had David Bailey, the edge from Texas Tech, going to the Commanders. Jordan Tyson, the second wide receiver taken, going to the New York Giants. And Spencer Faenow, offensive tackle from Utah, going to the Cardinals. That's where the Vikings get involved. So unfortunately, Caleb Downs was off the board as the Rams took him with pick number 9. Now, obviously, they have the Atlanta Falcons first-round pick for this year, so that would be a sweet pickup for the Rams. I mean, could you imagine if they ended up getting Caleb Downs in this? That would be unbelievable. But then they had Reuben Bain fall into the Cincinnati Bengals at pick number 10. And then they had the Vikings taking one of my favorites in this class, Mansoor Delane, in my opinion, the number one cornerback in this year's class from LSU. And this is what Field Yates had to say on the Vikings taking the LSU corner, saying a notable need for the Vikings is cornerback, where the team is lacking depth behind Byron Murphy Jr. and Isaiah Rodgers. Enter Delane, who took his game to another level after transferring from Virginia Tech before this season. He has excellent size for the position, 6 foot, 190 pounds, and thrives using force at the catch point to disrupt the ball. Delane is at his best playing off coverage and reading the quarterback. Though he is a willing run defender who could thrive in Brian Flores' aggressive system. When targeted as a primary coverage player this season, he surrendered the third lowest completion percentage in the FBS at 27.8%. And in my opinion, if you could somehow get Mansoor Delane, I think this would be a home run pick. Now, if you could just go throw on his tape, like this guy, kind of like Yates was saying, being a willing tackler, he no doubt is that. Like this guy will step up in the run game. He'll lay the boom. He's also a great form tackler. If you guys were watching that Chiefs-Texans game on Sunday night, it was like a form tackling, clinic by both defenses there. And Mansoor Delane, I mean, he is just that. So he would be in a very aggressive corner, does excel in off coverage, which obviously, Flores, he likes to press his corners, he likes to pull them off, and you got to be able to do a number of different things. We also seen Flores this year, always showing that typical cover zero look, but then it would just kind of have 4, secondary players sitting at the sticks, which Mansoor Delane would be a perfect fit in the Flores system. I think this would be a home run pick, no doubt about it, but he wouldn't be my top choice. My top prospects and top draft targets for the Minnesota Vikings go as follows. I think Caleb Downs would be my dream. I think he would be a perfect fit with Brian Flores, a versatile safety. I mean, you could line him up at multiple positions defensively, and obviously, versatility. That's what Brian Flores loves. And Caleb Downs, one, he's just a superstar, but also a very versatile player as well. And then I would still have Jeremiah Love at number 2. Now, this would be, more of a luxury pick for the Minnesota Vikings, but if you told me Kevin O'Connell is going to run the ball like he did against Washington Commanders, I think Jeremiah Love would be a home run pick. I mean, this guy, these two, in my opinion, are probably the two safest picks in the entire draft. Like, I think Caleb Downs will no doubt be a good player in the NFL, and same can be said about Jeremiah Love. But the Mansoor Delane, I mean, if that's your third option with where the Vikings are drafting right now, that would, again, be a home run pick. So if they leave in April with any of these 3 guys, I would be very excited about it. But there's also no doubt about it that the Vikings, they need to allocate a lot of resources to the secondary this offseason because, Byron Murphy Jr., has he lived up to that contract he signed this offseason? Not necessarily. Isaiah Rodgers, if you just take out that Bengals game, he has been a below-average corner. And then obviously with the safety position, You got Harrison Smith probably going to retire. Josh Metellus has regressed a little bit. We haven't seen as much as we'd have liked from a guy like Theo Jackson or a guy like Jay Ward. So I think secondary, obviously, will be probably the biggest position of need for the Vikings this offseason. So whether that's free agency, which the Vikings don't have a lot of money to spend, but mainly the draft is where I think they'll attack that. I could see them spending multiple draft picks on corners, on safeties this year in the 2026 NFL draft. But speaking about the secondary, what's the biggest position of need in your guys' opinion? Is it the safety position or is it the cornerback position? For me, I'm probably going to have to go corner on this one because I do think Brian Flores, he will make safeties work no matter who's playing back there for him. But the cornerback position this year for the Vikings has been pretty poor. So I would probably go corner over safety. But if you guys disagree with me, let me know your thoughts down below. All right, coming up next here on the show, we are going to be talking about Daniel Jones. Could be back with the Minnesota Vikings next season. We're going to talk about it here in just a second. ESPN put out an interesting article suggesting that might be the case. But before we do so, I got to give a massive, massive shout out to today's presenting sponsor, and that is Harry's, a shaving company. Here's an example of one of their brand new razors. And for a limited time, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10. $10 is right at harrys.com/chat. Now, I have used many razors in the past, and most of these razors would irritate my neck. It would become way too dull, way too fast, but that's not the case here at Harry's. I mean, they have completely changed how I view shaving my face. I honestly get excited about shaving my face every single day. That's because of Harry's Plus. It is one of the best razors I've ever used, and also Harry's Plus isn't just a razor. It's the centerpiece of a full grooming lineup, from shave gel to body wash, all designed with the same attention to detail, and everything is delivered straight to your door from Harry's own factory to your bathroom. There's no middleman. There's no markups. Just premium gear on your schedule. Give them a chance. I got this link for you guys in the comment section and description of today's show. You guys will be blown away by Harry's Plus, and for a limited time, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/chat. This set includes all new Harry's Plus razor, one refined 5-blade cartridge, a 2-ounce foaming shave gel, and a travel cover to protect your blades on the go. Just head to harrys.com/chat to claim this offer, and after you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show, Vikings Now by Chat Sports, and tell them we sent you. But a massive shout out to Harry's for sponsoring today's show. All right, let's talk about Daniel Jones. Could he be returning to the Vikings? Obviously, he's not getting the start this week as he is ruled out for the remainder of the season with a torn Achilles. So that means old man, 44-year-old grandfather, Philip Rivers, will most likely get the start this weekend in Seattle. I have a lot of thoughts on that I won't dive into too much on today's show, but that is one of the coolest storylines in the NFL. I mean, if you're just, an NFL fan, especially me, I'm 26 years old, growing up in that era where it's like Rivers, Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, the fact that Philip Rivers is going to be slinging it in the big year of 2025 for a team is truly, truly incredible. So pretty cool story there. But in terms of Daniel Jones, uncertainty with his future in Indianapolis now, Dan Graziano said there's a chance he returns to Minnesota, saying another that would make sense for him is to go back to Minnesota, where he finished last season as Sam Darnold's backup and rehab there with a staff that knows him and wanted to retain him but couldn't guarantee him the starting job this past offseason. Either way, the idea of a lucrative long-term contract extension in Indianapolis or somewhere else probably slides to the back burner in the light of Jones' most recent season-ending injury. And, Daniel Jones, on paper, would make some sense for the Vikings. I still fully think that they are going to be committed to J.J. McCarthy. Now, a lot can change over the last 4 weeks, but Daniel Jones would make some sense. And also, he's only 28 years old. Obviously coming off, he's also got a broken leg right now, but also a torn Achilles. The injury definitely throws kind of a wrench into things, makes it a lot more interesting in terms of the Vikings' interest in Daniel Jones. But Daniel Jones, if you told me he was going to be the backup for J.J. McCarthy next year, I would have some interest. Maybe you bring him in and say, hey, DJ, you can rehab from this torn Achilles. You can rehab from this broken leg. We'll start J.J. McCarthy week 1. But if you end up playing some good football, or if JJ doesn't end up playing some good football and he's struggling, you could be thrown into the starting lineup. I think DJ would have some interest there because obviously he has a ton of respect for O'Connell. He was on a podcast recently just saying how different it was from his time with New York with the Giants to his time with the Minnesota Vikings, just how they prepare, how detail-oriented they are. So he has a lot of love for this Vikings organization. But if it's not DJ, there are some other good options out there. You got a guy like Russell Wilson, a Joe Flacco, a Jimmy Garoppolo, Case Keenum, Marcus Mariota, Mitch Trubisky, Tyrod Taylor, and Teddy Bridgewater. Now, my number one guy on this list would be, Joe Flacco. If I had to pick one, but, Daniel Jones, like if he was an option, he might be number 2 for me. He would probably have the most talent out of everybody on this list, but I would still prefer that veteran option of being Joe Flacco. But in the end, it all comes down to number 9. Like, these last 4 games are huge for J.J. McCarthy and his personal development in the NFL, but also for the Vikings organization. Like, what decisions are they going to make this offseason? They don't feel comfortable with J.J. McCarthy being the starter. I think they could get even more aggressive, go get a Mac Jones, but I fully believe in the kid. If you guys have been watching this show for a while, JJ's been my guy. He's been a guy I've been massive on, and it was good to see him take a step in the right direction this past week against the Washington Commanders. So we can build off that big-time spot against the Cowboys defense that, has been pretty poor this entire year. But again, after the Quinn Williams trade, they've been better against the run. So I think JJ, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him to throw the ball this Sunday night, big-time stage against Dallas, even though the Cowboys are, 6-6-1 and the Vikings are 5-8. Like, this game will have a big-time feel to it as the Cowboys, especially with the Eagles losing. And it's a big-time spot for them. I'm sure the Vikings are trying to play, some kind of, we're going to wreck your season type of football here this Sunday. So we'll see what JJ does, but I'm very excited to watch him play. Again, the last 4 games, like, you're in Dallas, you're in New York against the Giants, and you got the Packers and Lions at home. I mean, JJ, if he can play some good football here, it would change all of our thoughts on how we view this quarterback position this offseason. But I want to ask you guys this. Down below in the comment section, name a random Vikings player for me. I love the answers I always get on these. For me, I'll go right tackle Phil Loadholt, one of the biggest right tackles in NFL history. But you guys get down in the comment section, name a random Vikings player for me, and we'll get on out of here. As always, Skol Vikes.